There are several things that you can do or not to do to basically avoid being, that diver on a liveaboard. Hi, all of you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine channel, your favourite place for the latest scuba diving news and gear reviews. Yeah, there are a few places to hide on a liveaboard, so it's important not to step on other divers' toes, because it's very easy for people to kind of judge you and pigeonhole you based on your apparent skills and attitude, and if there's nowhere to hide, then you kind of have to hide in plain sight. Today's episode is brought to you by 𝐼𝐵𝐺𝑎 Adventures, the team that's been turning dive dreams into real-life logbook entries since 1984. If your idea of a perfect vacation includes giant stride entries, incredible reefs, epic marine life, and then coming back to a seriously comfortable yacht, 𝐼𝐵𝐺𝑎 is speaking your language. Their liveaboards are built for the ultimate eat, sleep, and dive experience, with a world-renowned fleet, luxury accommodations, and destinations that make your group chat immediately jealous. From the Bahamas and Cayman Islands to the Galapagos, Maldives, Palau, Raja Ampat, and beyond. And it's not just liveaboards. 𝐼𝐵𝐺𝑎 also offers river cruises, signature lodges, and floating resorts. So basically, they figured out how to make adventure feel first class. If you're ready to stop saying one day I'll book that trip and actually make it happen, then head over to their website by clicking the link in the corner of the screen now and start planning your next adventure of a lifetime. On time is 5 minutes late on liveaboard. On time often means ready to go, not just kind of walking onto the dive deck half dressed or forgetting gear that's back in your cabin. There's plenty of downtime on a liveaboard, so use it properly to get yourself organized and ready for what's coming next, so that you're not left scrambling, going down 2 decks to find your computer and then coming back up again for the briefing. Liveaboards are on a schedule and they need to compete with other vessels for better mooring points at certain dive sites, and of course they all need to compete with the tides. If all of the divers are just dilly-dallying, just kind of getting ready on their own time, you may have longer swims, rougher conditions, and kind of a grumpy crew to contend with. When you hear the bell, that means dive briefing or food on most liveaboards, and just like a Pavlovian dog, you should hear it and head straight to where you need to be so that everybody isn't just waiting on you. One of the first words that my kids learned was tidy. Keep your gear organized and in the right place. Despite their size, there isn't a huge amount of space on a liveaboard, and it's very easy to kind of strew your gear all over the place. But do try to keep your gear organized and where it should be. You're usually given a crate that lives under your bench, underneath your cylinder, to kind of store smaller diving bits that are alright kind of being damp. Fins often live on the dive platform, and you bring your computer with you to kind of log your dives, as well as your camera to charge batteries and transfer photos. But once you're done with something, take the effort to put it away so that you don't lose it completely, because I've done it before. You put something on a table, you come back an hour or two later and someone's tidied it up for you, or someone plants a cylinder on top of it because they weren't expecting your mast to be on that bench. Make sure everything's nice and tidy. On most liveaboards, you set up your BCD right at the beginning of the trip on a tank, and that's your tank for the entire trip. You don't undo that BCD tank band. All you do is just take the regulators off so that the cylinder can be refilled in situ. Underneath that cylinder, as I mentioned earlier, will be your crate, and that's for your small bits like your torch, your mask, your SMB, those kind of things, and that's your spot. So choose wisely at the start. I usually prefer it somewhere where there's more fresh air. Others prefer to keep it closer to their dive buddy. You can relocate it between dives at some point, because sometimes it is easier just to be a little bit closer to your buddy, or if there's 3 of you all in the same group kitting up at the same time, it can get quite crowded, shoulder to shoulder. So if you do want to swap cylinders or swap positions to like where an unadopted cylinder is, that's fine. If you're swapping with another diver, obviously have that discussion first instead of moving their kit. So having your own spot is most important at the end of the dive, because you're getting out, and if you just like sit down in someone else's spot and they get out after you, they don't have anywhere to take the weight of their cylinder off their shoulders now, because you're in their spot, and it's only like a rock of the boat for them to fall and maybe hurt somebody. When you're on the dive deck, go where you need to go, back to your spot, and then plant your cylinder in your spot instead of sitting down just kind of where you fancy. Get in, gear up and move. The whole dive deck area should not stop because one diver is still like organising clips and straps and things. Back to the liveaboard schedule. When it's time to kit up, kit up. It's not the time for like redoing your hair or socialising with another diver. Throw your suit on, put your lead in place, turn your tank on and run through your pre-dive checks. Because of things like water movement, you've got current, sometimes entries need to be quick, and as an entire group, the more time between the first diver jumping and the last diver jumping, the more spread out the group is going to be in the water at the beginning, and of course increased chances of either the boat hitting the reef because it's moving, or gunning the engine, and usually the propeller is right near where you're jumping in. Usually with big groups, you're split in two. So you'll have like a group A of divers and then a group B. Group A will jump first, so they'll go down first, they'll kit up, and then as they're ready to jump in, Group B will start to come downstairs to start getting kitted up, and once A is jumped in the water, yeah, B has more space to get kitted up. If there's still stragglers from A on the deck, then it just gets crowded and the dive site becomes a mess, and the boat's kind of not, the boat basically wants to get in and get out as quickly as possible. Fresh water is quite limited on a liveaboard, so no luxurious 10-minute showers. Don't waste the fresh water, don't monopolize it neither, and definitely do not dump random gear where it doesn't belong. On the dive deck of many liveaboards will be one or two small like spray hoses to spray key gear between dives as you're getting out with desalinated water, and then you'll also have a pair of dunk tanks that usually have fresh water swapped over quite frequently. You don't need to wash all of your dive gear between dives. Your BCD or your wetsuit isn't going to disintegrate because of a little salt water. They're built to experience salt water. Wash anything that will rust, like stainless steel dive knives, but don't just dunk it anywhere. One dunk tank, most liveaboards typically have two, maybe even three if you're lucky, but one dunk tank is usually allocated for camera gear. Because of their precise mechanisms, little buttons and things, they have their own dedicated dunk tank so that everyone else isn't just dunking like their torches and their mask and their SMBs, and just kind of this fresh, clean water isn't so fresh anymore. So yeah, don't dunk your reels and stuff in there. And if your mask, when you take it off, is kind of, you know, gunky, wash that in the sea first as you're getting out, so that you're not now sharing bodily fluids with everyone else on the boat. Just try to keep things as clean as possible so we're not sharing things. Boats don't have a lot of noise cancelling panels in the walls, so you're gonna hear people moving around. Late night especially, clattering, slamming doors and loud voices, they're going to travel on a boat. And whilst you may want to turn the liveaboard into some kind of party boat, some people appreciate their sleep and the crew themselves need some R&R. Some people catnap during the day between dives, so try to keep it sensible throughout the entire day. Try to keep the noise to a minimum by closing doors properly instead of slamming them. No shouting, just walk up to someone if you need to communicate with them. A good night's sleep will make a huge difference to your diving recovery and your decompression, but if it's interrupted by some obnoxious diver, then you're not going to be too happy, and most dive days start at around 6 AM, so an early night is usually a good idea. Towels, wetsuits, underlayers and swimwear all need room to dry, but not all of the rails are yours. Wetsuits usually have their own rail to air dry between dives where you hang them up, but there are only so many hangers for them, so if you brought your wetsuit and you only end up diving in a rash vest, then once your wetsuit is dry, just pack it away somewhere so that there's more space for others. Because if there's so many wetsuits on a rack, they're all kind of crowded together, they're all going to dry much slower, whereas if there's much fewer, then there's more space between them. If you're drying clothes, then don't pack the rails with your stuff so the boat just looks like a giant clothesline. You can hang a few bits up, make sure it's nice and secure so the wind doesn't blow it away, but try and organize it so that you only have to hang up a couple of things that need drying, to kind of leave space for others to do the same, and check on it frequently. Clothes dry very quickly in the windy and sunny conditions, so you can take them down as soon as they're dry and make some space for other divers. The best liveaboard guests are calm, prepared, polite, and don't create avoidable work for the staff. It's not unusual for the crew to try and help divers with small things, and whilst it's okay to say, oh no, it's all right, I've got this, don't be a prick about it. They're only trying to help, and if you scold them, they're not going to look in your direction to help when you may actually need it. Be nice to the crew, thank them for everything that they do, and just generally be approachable. Better yet, try and learn some of their names so that when you actually need a hand with something, you can ask someone specifically for help. Personally, I've been invited to eat with the crew, eat their food before, just because I've been nice to them throughout the trip and they want to have like chat with me, and whilst they don't like fiddle with my gear because they understand that I don't need help with it in that way, when I do actually need something like a tool that I don't have, they'll be there and they'll help me. The basics really are just be a good person, keep things nice and tidy, and of course be on time, and don't try to impress. I've seen divers attempt like equipment swaps during a drift dive and just completely made a whole mess of that. Divers reaching for the rib at the end of the dive with 0 bar in their cylinder and forgetting how to inflate their BCD when there's no gas in their cylinder, and then shout at the crew member for some reason as if they were in the wrong. And then there's the quiet, humble diver with simple gear but thousands of dives under their belt, who are there just for a good time. They're not boasting about the things they've seen or done, just try to aspire to be the latter. Also remember to check out Aggressor Adventures when you're planning your next liveaboard holiday, and of course subscribe to the channel for more scuba advice and check out our magazine. Thank you for watching everybody, and of course, safe diving.